She left sanctuary from deportation through the front door, thanks to a backdoor deal crafted through Congress. President Trump's next FBI director could be chilling down in the Springs right now. A dog owner asked people like her to try a little tough love.
Dog is an animal. It's not a human. You can't reason with them.
She's waiting for her husband to come home, just like she waited 75 years ago. CU's graduation tends to get all the attention, but these grads deserve their due too.
It was one of the happiest moments of my life, just to be able to walk across that stage.
And your good news, it's a boy. Next. America's immigration debate is loud and public, continuous and contentious, but all the while, there has been this quiet backdoor way for members of Congress to pick people who are here illegally, pick particular people, and give them safe status. It's done through private bills. Using that process, the two best-known people who are living in Colorado illegally will get to stay just a little bit longer. A private bill is just like any other bill in Congress, like Obamacare, Trumpcare, but private bills, which start for the relief of, they're generally used as a last resort to fend off the deportation of someone who's here illegally. Democratic Senator Michael Bennet introduced a private bill for Jeanette Vizqueta in March and Arturo Hernandez in April. These are his first private bills in 7.5 years in the Senate. Democratic Congressman Jared Polis has introduced a private bill for Vizqueta 3 of the last 4 years. And earlier this month, Democratic Congressman Ed Perlmutter brought his second private bill for Hernandez. Let's look at the bigger picture. Nationwide, 7 senators and 13 representatives from 10 different states have introduced private bills for more than 45 individuals who are in this country illegally. It's mostly Democrats introducing these deportation-stopping private bills. Just 3 of the lawmakers involved are Republicans. But back to Colorado. The private bills, like the ones for Vizqueta and Hernandez, they don't tend to go anywhere, but that's not the point. They essentially trigger a 2-year stay of deportation just by being introduced. The Trump administration is now threatening to largely shut down the process. But the ICE decision means Vizqueta and Hernandez are 2 of the last people to be allowed through what the president himself might call a big, beautiful door in a wall that is yet to be built. Thanks to the crack work of the Congressional Research Service, we know that in the last 10 years, there have been 455 private bills, meaning 455 automatic stays for people who are here illegally. Today's actions did not clear out Denver's sanctuary churches. We know of 1 person remaining, a woman who's taking shelter at a Quaker church in southeast Denver. There's no private bill in Congress on her behalf yet because she's still working through her legal options. Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers' name is being tossed around nationally as a possible replacement for former FBI Director James Comey. Yes, indeed. He's apparently on the short list of candidates put out by Fox News and confirmed by the Trump administration. Republican Senator Cory Gardner tweeted his support for Suthers today as well. Gardner says he recommended him to the White House. That's how the name showed up. Now, the proper thing for the prospective candidate to do is to put out a bland statement saying virtually nothing. And Suthers nailed it. Said, while I am honored to be listed as a possibility among some tremendous law enforcement professionals, at this point it would be premature to comment any further. Smart man. Mayor Suthers was Colorado's Attorney General for a decade. Before that, he was a prosecutor. Well, listen, don't tell President Trump, but Suthers was enthusiastically endorsed for that job by a big-name Democrat, Governor John Hickenlooper, who talked to politics guy Brandon Rittiman today.
He is a direct, straightforward person with the highest integrity.
So as sticky as it's going to be, there is going to need to be a new FBI director. Would you be enthusiastic about him being the pick?
No, I hate to lose him. But that being said, for the country, I think that he would be an excellent FBI director.
The governor is also threatening to call state legislators back for a special session. He's saying he hopes to decide on that early next week. Governor's issue, numero uno, he wants a lot more money to upgrade highways to deal with traffic congestion from all the growth. Republican State Senate President Kevin Grantham says a tax hike is simply a non-starter. And Hickenlooper knows it's not going to be a layup.
Perhaps the transportation is a long shot, but I can't believe, and I've been wrong before, but I can't believe that all the Republicans are going to look at the traffic and the rate of growth in this community, and they're going to deny the voters a chance to vote. Right? Also, no one's trying to push this down anybody's throat. We're just saying, put it on the ballot and let people vote to decide whether we need to have a very small increase in sales tax to make sure we don't have all these traffic jams.
Is there a way to accomplish what you want to accomplish without going to the voters for a tax increase?
No, there is no way to accomplish what we need to accomplish in this community. We have about $9 billion worth of, I think, fairly dire transportation needs.
In that interview on Sunday's Balance of Power, the governor also shares his thoughts on FBI Director James Comey's firing, saying that he supports appointing a special prosecutor to investigate potential Russian involvement in the election. Balance of Power airs 8:45 Sunday mornings right before Meet the Press. You can simultaneously love dogs and be scared to death of them at times. Kristen Haber loves her dog, and she watched in horror as two dogs mauled her pet recently. It led her to plead with us to let her make this public plea.
My name is Kristen Haber, and this is Walter. As you can see, he's a small dog. I was coming out of my apartment building at 6:30 in the morning, and he was barely out of the door, and two unrestrained dogs attacked him the moment we stepped outside of the apartment. Both of these dogs pounced on my dog, and we're literally using him as a rope in a game of tug of war. Walter was lying in the street on his back, making noises that I've never heard a dog make. He was in intensive care for 3 days, and they did surgery on him. And it's 2.5 weeks later, and he still has this significant wound. Go ahead, sit down. Right near the goose poop. Good job. It took 2 weeks of pretty intense wound care. I think that people overestimate their control over their animals. So you can't ever predict what a dog is going to behave like. A dog is an animal. It's not a human. You can't reason with them. You can't tell what they're going to act like. The last thing that you want to do as a dog owner is be responsible for harming another dog or another human.
Some smart advice. A few months back, we talked about efforts to raise money to send our veterans to Washington, honor flights, so that they can see the memorials that are dedicated to their service. A group of vets from the metro area are there now, and their families are waiting for them to come home, full of stories, some that they'll share, some that they'll keep to themselves. It's really not unlike the way that Betty McClure waited for her husband, Mac, 75 years ago. They met as teenagers. They say they were practically engaged when he went off to war and was there for 4 years. Betty now waits for him to come home from Washington, and she told me that she treats their time apart like those years when they were separated so long ago, by focusing on the positive.
You know, it takes more energy to be sad and mad than it does to smile. And thank the Lord for what you have.
Funny story, when Matt got home from 4 years at war, he and Betty decided that they really didn't know each other anymore and they shouldn't get married after all. And then 2 weeks later, they got married. They've had a wonderful 72 years since. We'll share their whole story and meet more of the veterans aboard the honor flight quite soon. It's a sign that the Botanic Gardens wants to help with your grow operation. There's a hidden reason so many of us clicked on hail damage photos to gawk at other people's misfortune this week. Dr. Max is inside our heads.
As a sophomore in high school, I lost my vision due to a brain tumor.
Diplomas that are testaments to pure will and determination. And your good news has us meeting moms who have already received their Mother's Day gifts. Next. Next is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Actually, Next is live. It's not filmed at all. And tonight's audience is full of people that we happen to meet on Next this week. There's Reagan from Wheat Ridge. Her face was all of our faces during Monday's hailstorm, and I understand that she is quite the celebrity at her school now. And then there's Allie, the woman that we saw holding an umbrella over a mother goose and her eggs in Lakewood during the hail. She tells us that a few kind strangers took turns protecting the nest. And who could forget the guy with the awesome hair and love of McDonald's in our 1997 throwback to a story about HOV lanes? Roy happened to be watching Next and saw us play this.
It's easier for me to go to McDonald's in this lane than it is than trying to cut all the way over at the last minute.
I'm Roy, and I'm the HOV driver, and we'll talk to you next.
If you want to score some herb this weekend, the enormous spring plant sale is today and tomorrow at the Denver Botanic Gardens. Next viewer Megan Ward spotted a sign that somebody there at the Botanic Gardens has a pretty good sense of humor.
All right, you see it right here, evidence that we just had a pretty bad storm.
Yeah, look at this carnage.
Dr. Max Wachtel. So I've asked the producers at 9news.com, and they say whenever they put up a slideshow of hail damage, trees down, roofs destroyed, people love to look at that. What's the psychology of enjoying looking at something like that?
So we as humans, part of what makes us human is that we have a morbid sense of curiosity.
Sure.
We all know we're going to die someday, and that and that we can go to those dark places in our minds. So that we'd like to see destruction like that, and it's kind of a safe way to do it. You're looking at a slideshow as opposed to looking out at your house being destroyed or your own car being destroyed, and you also aren't looking at the horrible pictures of violence. This isn't the people lying in the street, crushed under the weight of all of the hail. This is cars being ruined. So it's kind of a safe way for us to get that sense of morbid curiosity.
Sure, that makes sense. Same kind of thing of when I'm driving down the highway then and I see an accident on the side of the road?
Yeah, it's very much that rubbernecking kind of thing. Now with it, and with the accidents, we'd have to be careful because sometimes those can be very bloody and scary, and that but that's why looking at a slideshow of things like hail damage is that's pretty safe.
A little bit safer.
We're going to see amazing photos of hail shattering windshields, but we aren't going to see anything really dangerous or disgusting.
Makes perfect sense. Dr. Max Wachtel, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sometimes looking at those severe weather pictures will also kind of give you a moment of gratitude if you escaped the damage. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. We do not have severe weather in the forecast. How nice is that after an active week of weather? Temperatures today way above average in the mid-70s. We'll go even warmer heading into the holiday weekend. Our storm is tracking off to the east. The next one we're watching is in the Pacific Northwest. Most of the energy stays north of us, and winds out of the southwest will push temperatures into the 80s both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday looks to be the warmer, drier day. A little push of moisture on the southwest flow could translate to an isolated high base storm in the mountains or foothills. And high base means wind and lightning, not much rain or anything else. So really beautiful forecast for us, including this Friday night with fair skies and 50 degrees. Tomorrow, lots of sunshine for you, and southwest winds will get us into the mid-80s. Again, the average high this time of year is close to 70. We'll be above average as we move into Sunday and Monday. That California storm could bring a few late-day storms on Tuesday, and in the high country, the great thaw has begun. The snow is really beginning to melt up there, and good travel for those looking for that mountain getaway today.
That's slow drip, drip. Thank you, Kathy. So sitting in a crowd at a graduation, as your eyes slowly glaze over as you count the number of names remaining before the one name that brought you there to graduation, during that moment of boredom, it's easy to forget that some of the anonymous people in cap and gown crossing the stage have extraordinary stories in their wake. Byron Reed took his camera to Metro State and found two such hidden stories today.
Janelle Henderson.
For most graduating from Metro State University,
Jesus Quintana Martinez.
Getting through the pomp and circumstance of graduation is a special moment.
It's definitely been a huge process.
But for Emily Zimmerman, getting to graduation was a different kind of journey.
As a sophomore in high school, I lost my vision due to a brain tumor.
Emily and her family moved here from South Carolina to help fulfill her childhood dream.
And I had always had the dream of going to college and knew that I needed training in order to do that.
Training by means of her father.
I became Emily's human guide dog,
who was with her almost every step of the way.
I would go to campus with her every day and help her get from class to class. Some of the classes even sit on with her in the beginning.
Including today. He's here helping his daughter take another step to fulfilling her dream.
Emily Zimmerman.
A journey that creates lifetime memories for about 1,700 graduates.
Ooh.
Like Eduardo Rascon III.
This has been quite a journey.
Who will be the first in his family to graduate with a college degree.
It means the world to me. If it wasn't for my family, I wouldn't be where I am.
So for most graduates, getting through today is a celebration of what they've learned in the classroom.
Eduardo Rascon III.
But for others, getting to today is a celebration of life's lessons learned along the way.
We can overcome them and get through them in different ways, and that's what I hope to be able to do.
For next, I'm Byron Reed.
This week when we asked, what's your good news? We kinda already knew the answer. They'll receive a lot of advice about growing up, starting with this sign. And kids these days, don't believe the TV news. They're exceptional. More proof next. Each Friday, we share your good news, typically right before we say goodbye. This week's good news came surprisingly early, as this type of good news sometimes does.
My good news is I gave birth to Wiley on May 10th at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he's my new addition to our family.
I think this is pretty good news right here. This is Johan, our first baby.
We had him just 2 hours ago. That's a great news for us today.
I just gave birth to Joseph Henry here.
My good news is a healthy mom and brand new baby girl.
Now we're a family of 4.
We have someone new and special to celebrate this year.
No, it'll be giving thanks to the woman who had brought my son into the world.
People are so excited about their new addition to their families.
We could not be more excited, neither could our families.
May I make a recommendation? Point you toward a piece of journalism that did not come from 9 News, but is definitely worth your time. Approaching Mother's Day, Eden Lepucki asks us to reconsider how we think of our mothers, specifically to see them as we never saw them ourselves in their younger years, before children. Her op-ed weaves together photos of women and thoughts about their daughters, about what looks familiar in those photos, and which characteristics appear to be from a long-lost time. Lepucki writes in the New York Times, "I've come to wonder what traits we allow our mothers to have and which ones we view as temporary, expiring with age and the beginning of motherhood." It's a Mother's Day weekend invitation to consider our mothers' lives in full. There's a link on the next Facebook page. You know who tends to get a raw deal on the news? Teenagers. Their biggest mistakes will make headlines. Their achievements are sometimes buried down in the newscast, sometimes ignored altogether, which is why we want to highlight the honors group at Horizon High in Thornton. They've gathered to bring gift baskets to oncology nurses who help families deal with the stresses of cancer day after day.
We got the project, the big idea, at the beginning of the semester in our honors program. And so we had to come up with a problem in our community and find a creative way to solve this problem.
This led us to do some research, and we found out that nurses suffer from compassion fatigue, which is a secondary post-traumatic stress disorder. And we knew that these nurses do so much for so many people, and we feel they didn't get the recognition that they deserved, especially for all the work they put in for so many others.
Then to kind of help with this cause, we hosted a week over our spring break, where each day, Monday through Thursday, we brought in a lunch from local businesses.
Doing this project, there was like a domino effect from us doing these actions, and just seeing the gratitude from the nurses through this was like super amazing for us to experience.
A group calls itself Nurture the Nurses, and they plan to continue their project next year as seniors. Your feedback this Friday includes the most commonly asked question we get about illegal immigration. Next. It's a sign. Warning of the inevitable. Don't grow up. It's a trap. Hayden Powell saw this in Fort Collins. Email your signs to next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext. Norman asks, why is it that most of the people asking for legal immigration status don't speak English? Well, Jeanette Vizguera, who we had on, does speak English. I think she just prefers to speak in her native language when she's handling those high-stakes moments of her life. Makes sense to me. See you next time.